It's very important that we read things which are challenging our own notions. But when it comes to fiction, stories are a beautiful way to engage our minds and
Absolutely.
also broaden us the matter. These are the people I have usually observed. They read a lot of Indian literature and they appreciate it. So it's not
Hmm.
like they are reading it and the literature is definitely good. It is definitely
Yeah.
lovely experience.
हेलो दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है जयेश गंगन और आप देख रहे हैं द आवारा मुसाफिर शो। आज के एपिसोड में हम बात कर रहे हैं ख्याति गौतम से, जो कि एक बुकस्टाग्रामर है, बुक रिव्यूअर है, कंटेंट क्रिएटर है। इस एपिसोड में हमने कई सारे टॉपिक्स पे बात की है। हम बात करते हैं चेतन भगत के बारे में, हम बात करते हैं हिंदी लिटरेचर का क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है आज के डे एंड एज में। हम ये भी बात करते हैं कि इंडियंस को सेल्फ हेल्प बुक से इतना ज़्यादा प्यार क्यों है। इस एपिसोड को एंड तक देखिए क्योंकि इसमें कई सारे ऐसे इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक्स आपको मिलेंगे जिनके बारे में आपको जानना ज़रूरी है। और ऑल्सो लेट मी टेल यू, ख्याति के जो ओपिनियंस है, जो उनके थॉट्स है, वो एक बहुत ही वेल नोन प्लेस से आते हैं बिकॉज शी हैज़ रेड सो मैनी बुक्स। तो उन्हें एक बहुत ही अच्छा अंदाज़ा है अबाउट वर्ल्ड इशूज़ एंड ऑल्सो इशूज़ दैट आर वेरी क्लोज टू आवर हार्ट, विच आर वेरी क्लोज टू अस कल्चरली। इस एपिसोड को एंड तक देखना और अगर चैनल पे नए हो तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना। अगर ख्याति का अकाउंट अभी तक आपने इंस्टाग्राम पे नहीं देखा है तो प्लीज़ गो एंड फॉलो हर एज वेल। And let's start with talking about books, but not in the sense कि हम बुक्स के बारे में बात करते हैं. Let's talk about your writing first, because मैंने जब explore किया आपका Instagram page, it was more from the perspective of your writing, because I think so one of your posts just popped up on my feed in the explore page Instagram ka, and I was I was reading that write-ups that you write on every post, and then I checked some other write-ups as well, and I felt as a reader that you should write a book. You have that kind of language which connects with people. So how did writing happen? Like, are you are you dreaming about writing someday a book or anything like that?
Okay. So I think since my childhood, I have been very much interested in reading as well as writing. I think writing just came very naturally to me. When I used to read people when I was still very young, in the school magazines or the newspapers, some great writers and the write-ups used to come, and I would always read them, and I would always wonder, like, how do these people write so well, and would there, kabhi aisa din aayega that I would be able to write it the way they are, like kabhi aisa din aayega that I would get published probably in some newspaper or magazine or on web. So I was just always very fascinated by all this writing ecosystem. So but eventually I started writing by the time I think I was in my early mid teenage, I think I would say. I started writing poems, short paragraphs, musings, and I think reading also just got intensified in my teenage for me.
Right.
Library, and then visit the book, read the books there, and I think that reading has developed an attraction in me. I think an interest in me that I want to write something now. So then the writing started, and while I got into college, I think I was out of touch with both reading and writing for almost 1.5 years. I was just enjoying my college life then. But by the time I was in second year, I again got into writing. I used to, participate in this online writing contest that happened on Instagram, on Facebook. And that's how I realized that I should, polish my entire writing, because let's see what people resonate with and what I want to write. And that's how the thing started. And since then, I have been on and off with writing. In fact, I haven't written anything creatively in the past 1 year, I think. I have been out of touch again with writing. So I'm so glad that you have, popped up this thing that, you just discovered me because of my writing. That has somehow motivated me again that I should pick up my pen and write again.
So, no, because, have you heard this saying that as much as you read, it makes you a better writer. Like, jitna zyada tum padhoge, utne achhe tum writer banoge. But I have a flip question to this for you. The more you write, the better you get at reading. Is that also possible?
The more you write, the better you get at reading. I'm not too sure about this. But I think when you write, when you are in touch with words, and
Yeah,
you kind of try to delve into your own mind and the surroundings and in this entire beautiful world of words, you
correct.
somehow get a little more interested, into reading, and reading more versatile people. Okay, reading people
Hmm.
who are actually, suppose you take in example of Chumpa Lahiri, or
Hmm.
there was a one book that has come out, Amitav Ghosh for that matter.
Right.
These people, they write with their heart, and they're literally, the writing is very
Correct.
different. It's subtle, it's beautiful. So probably that your writing also does, help you in getting more into
Yeah.
reading. I'm not too sure about that, but maybe.
So, because I have noticed this in me, I come from a
Hmm.
journalism background, and when I'm
Oh,
writing
great.
articles on a, like, on a
Hmm.
stretch, like for example, if I'm writing articles per day, I feel
Hmm.
that I can read better because I am in touch with words. So I do not have
Right.
to, nahi to
Hmm.
reading mein always there's this one phase where you are
Hmm.
reading, and then this
Hmm.
one phase comes jahan pe tum nahi pad pate ho. It's like a reading slump.
Right.
And I think so,
Hmm.
when you write, there's no reading slump
Hmm.
for some reason. I don't know scientifically kya hai, but I have
Hmm.
noticed
Hmm.
this.
Hmm. Probably. But
Yeah.
what I have also noticed is, like, when I have to write every day, like as a commercial content writer or
Hmm.
something like that, I tend to be less creative with things. I don't know why that is. This
Okay.
is, I think, this differs from person to person. I felt that, when I
Uh,
do a lot of writing, I'm just a little
yeah.
less creative with everything. I need my time and space for my creativity to breathe.
Correct.
And that is something that doesn't come in when you have to be doing the same thing over and over again every day.
Hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Because when you write every day, obviously it takes a toll on
Hmm.
your creative side as well. So,
Right.
हाँ, मतलब
Hmm.
that I agree with. But then you
Hmm.
talked about Jhumpa Lahiri, you talked about Amitav Ghosh. Are
Hmm.
there any more writers like them,
Hmm.
jinko you might have, followed just because for their writing, not even the stories, just the way they write?
Hmm. I think Ruskin Bond is one person
Oh, wow.
who
Yeah.
I absolutely adore,
Yeah.
because his writing is very simple and we are able to connect with it instantly.
Exactly.
Similarly, I think for Sudha Murthy, because her writing is again very
Hmm.
simple, very authentic,
Right.
nothing too flowery in terms of language, but just something that just reflects the real world out there
Correct.
and the real
Correct.
emotions of real humans. So I think this is these two are the people who are always. I just everything reminds me of them.
Yeah. So, dude, like, how old are you right now?
Right now I'm 25.
25. And you started reading, I think so, at like mid teenager. So, I'm guessing around
Mhm.
14, 15, like that.
Yeah, probably. But I
So,
started reading from
yeah.
the time when I was 3 or 4 year old. It's just
Yeah.
that I have been on and off with reading, but I think it all intensified while in my teenage. So yeah.
Correct. But then, that
Hmm.
brings me to the next question, which is ki, when you start reading so early,
Hmm.
how does
Hmm.
it, affect you? Like, obviously, it has some positive aspects. If you can
Hmm.
highlight those, because I see in India, especially with the teenagers today, because the
Hmm.
information is so much on the internet, people do not go
Hmm.
towards the books. So, if you
Hmm.
could just, highlight those positive aspects of reading.
Hmm. Okay, so we didn't have the access to internet while we were young. We just
Yeah.
had books and
Yeah. Good
probably
old
some
days.
amount of yeah, or some television shows or something like that.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel reading just makes you a better person when you're in a world where
Hmm.
you are exposed to different ideas, different ways of expressing those ideas,
Yeah.
different words. It just makes you more patient, humble, and definitely develops your interpersonal skills to some level.
Right.
Because when you read about a lot of things, suppose there are books, there are stories which reflect, they talk about how something bad is happening around in the world. You probably just read it and then become more empathetic towards things.
Yeah.
Like the world is not all beautiful, full of beautiful fairies and
Correct.
unicorns or something like that. There is everything, a lot of
Yeah.
things are going out, happening around you, and you just acquaint yourself with it and become um, aware of those things. So
Hmm.
as for me, reading has definitely made me a better person, especially with expressing myself.
Yeah.
Because I have been a person who has a lot of difficulty in, being good at verbal communication. Like, I'm not good with expressions. I'm not good
Yeah.
with talking and verbally telling people, ki, okay, this is this, and these are the challenges I'm facing, or these are the problems
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to talk about or stuff. But when I read, I feel that my emotions are valid, my thoughts are valid. There's nobody to judge me there. And
Hmm.
as I read, it just makes me a better writer. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's that.
So do you
Mm.
like, and I am asking you this because you just now told ki you're not good with words always. Like I'm sure there are times when you are good, but there are some times when you're not. Do you remember our
Yes.
first conversation when I like we are doing the podcast now, but I think so
Hmm.
I got in
I
touch with you
remember.
few months back. So yeah, you
Yeah.
told me that you are not comfortable doing a video podcast, and I was like,
Yes.
this is a content creator, and she's not ready to do a podcast. And I was like, I was thinking why, and now I got the answer. So what changed in that time period? Like are you good at talking now, or are you just challenging yourself to talk now? What is it?
Mhm. I think what has changed in all of these months is that I'm trying to come out of my own comfort zone now. Like, I
Right.
realized that this is not how I can go ahead. I cannot
Hmm.
always stay in my zone and be like, okay,
Yeah.
things will happen. No, I have to challenge myself. I have to push my own limits to probably get somewhere. So this
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
reason why I have been actively trying to, embrace as many opportunities as I can. I have been very
Hmm.
reluctant with a lot of things in the past, and I definitely agree with what you said. And I still remember we had a conversation about the podcast in 2020,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
it is happening today in 2022. So
Right.
I was like, oh my god, it just took us so long.
Yeah.
So I think the way everyone has been trying to experiment, to be out of their zone, to do newer
Hmm.
things, because that's the only road to growth. I should also be doing the same. And I
Yeah.
think that willingness to come out of my zone has definitely led me to be on this podcast today.
Correct. And okay, so basically this podcast, as I told you, this might have like three aspects basically. One was writing,
Hmm.
one was books, and the third one was social media, because you are a content
Yeah.
creator.
Hmm.
I want to ask you this particularly now that we are on this topic of content creation and how content creators grow.
Hmm.
What what firstly made you start your Bookstagram? Because a few days back you put up a story where you were asking people कि तुमने क्यों चालू
Hmm.
किया वो बताओ. So I want to flip
Yeah.
that question on you कि why did you start?
Okay. So I have been into book reviewing since 2017.
Right.
Because a friend of mine introduced me to this entire ecosystem of book reviewing and
Yeah.
how it all works. So that I started as a hobby because I
Hmm.
used
Hmm.
to love reading books, and book reviewing gave me an opportunity to also write about them. Again, another activity that
Correct.
I absolutely enjoy doing.
Correct.
So I just got into things, and slowly and steadily, by 2018, I got to know about the Bookstagram. I was still not very sure about that there's such a large community out there. But
Hmm.
I knew that, people click good pictures of the books and they put it on Instagram and
Yeah.
stuff. So I just created my account, and in September 2018, I started it. I mean, the 31st August was the day
Right.
in 2018 that I started Bookstagram finally. Again, it took me a lot of time to finally understand the dynamics of this community, the
Yeah.
Bookstagram community. The name itself was so new to me. And I realized that I think Bookstagram, I started because not it just gave me an opportunity to read, to write, and also click good pictures of the books. Now, again,
Hmm.
this is something that I enjoy doing. So
Yeah.
these were the three main things. Slowly, I think I have also been, I have been enjoying the good conversations with some of the good folks, who talk about
Hmm.
reading. Also, it
Yeah.
is a platform I have discovered so many writers. The writers otherwise I wouldn't have discovered for a very, very long time. Now,
Right.
even though they are on my TBR right now, I haven't read all of them, but still I
Yeah.
know about, like, these are the people I look forward to reading sometime in future. So this community of
Hmm.
people who are readers and who are so diverse readers has this community has helped me to become a better reader for that matter, and also has developed my view, my perception of seeing the world. Because here the people are
Right.
coming from different walks of life. They are coming from different communities. They're coming
Correct.
from different. They have their different schools of thought. and it is so interesting to engage in those conversations and connect with them. So it has been
Right.
a good journey with Bookstagram.
Right. So, like you talked about the dynamics of Bookstagram, and for a matter of fact, like I started Bookstagram and then I quit it. But like, and the reason why I quit it was because I couldn't grow it, and the reason behind was that I couldn't write book reviews. And I still till today I have read a lot of books, but I cannot write book reviews for some reason. I don't know why, but wo just I don't know what are the basics of writing a review. So I cannot go into the detail. I know everything about a particular book, but I won't be able to write the book review. I can take good pictures of the books because I have a background in photography as well. So I can take good pictures, but I cannot write. And as you mentioned it, that the dynamics need to be right. It needs to be a combination of writing, of creative, of photography.
Right.
So, how did you develop this? Because I'm guessing writing a book review is a completely different task. So, how do you develop that skill?
Developing the photography thing or the entire
reviewing skill. Because photography is still I think so it's easier for a lot of people because everyone has a good phone now. But writing, it's a special skill. So, how do you develop that?
I'm not sure if my reviews are great. I'm not at all sure about this fact. The only thing I do is I just write whatever I feel about a book after reading it. So, I mean, I think practice makes you a better person with whatever art or whatever skill you're trying to get good with. So I just started reading. I mean, I've been into writing for a long time, right? And while I was reading also, and I've been writing about books for a long time. So I think I have developed, I have been practicing this entire thing. And when you do something over and over again, you tend to get better at it. With every passing day, you will have a better version of yourself doing that particular thing. Also, I have read a lot of people who review books, either from newspapers or on web, or these book reviewers on Bookstagram itself. I read them and I try to understand how are they forming their ideas, how are they shaping their thoughts, how are they putting it out, all what is there inside of themselves out on the web. So how are they doing it? And after a careful observation, studying others, that's how you get better at doing things. Practice makes you perfect. Taking a careful consideration of things makes you perfect. That's how you do
Makes
it.
sense. Makes sense.
And most importantly, love for what you do.
Yeah, that's if you do not love writing, then there's no point to it. And as you mentioned that some people write their book reviews in a certain style, they have flair for it. And it just looks that they are very passionate about that book. And when I compare those reviews with mine, I'm like, ye kya matlab kachra likha hai maine? This is so good. And I don't know, it's I think so book reviewing is a skill that people can develop. It's just it takes practice, as you said.
Absolutely. It of course takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. And I want to know from you, what do you read more, like fiction or non-fiction?
Anything and everything that comes to me, I read everything. But I think these days I'm very, interested in reading non-fiction, self-help books.
So you also have phases.
Yes,
like
all the time. Phases.
Yeah. Because I go through these phases when I'll just read non-fiction, and then there are phases when I'll just read fiction, and usme bhi fir there are different kinds of fiction, there are different kinds of non-fiction. So you also have that same kind of thing?
Probably. I have been in this space. Of course, I'm reading fiction also, but I think in the past few months, I'm just more interested into exploring non-fiction. I don't know why. I haven't read a lot of non-fiction, but still, I'm just very keen on trying. Okay, let me just try it. What is a new upcoming business read that's coming up, or what is the new self-help that's coming up? What is the new book that is focusing on content creation, for that matter? Anything and everything. But this is probably a phase. Also, I just read it somewhere that when people just start aging, when they know that okay, the time is passing by, you don't have a lot of time on this world, in this world, so you just want to read quality things. And also I think people just develop more inclination towards reading non-fiction. This was something that I read. I'm not too sure if it is true, but something like that. So I think now that I'm growing old, I want to read non-fiction something. Yeah.
But then has this ever happened with you that sometimes like I feel there are so many books, like millions of good books, and I'm just reading few hundred of those. So ऐसा feeling आता है कभी? So is there that feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out?
The fear of FOMO, I mean, the fear of missing out was there when I started bookstagramming, because I was seeing a lot of good books out there.
Yeah.
I bought books. I did impulse book buying for a long time. And to date, I haven't read those books. All those award-winning books, all those popular books on the web, I haven't read them.
The infamous TBR pile.
Yeah, the infamous TBR pile that has no end now.
Yeah.
But now I think after all this time, I don't have that FOMO anymore with me. I mean, let me read whatever I want to read. I have limited time anyway, so I don't know when the life is gonna end for me. So let's just read whatever comes our way. Let's try to create our own reading list. Let's take inspiration from others' reading list, but don't be so influenced that you start feeling that pressure of being, the pressure that you want to fit into this entire ecosystem of readers or something. Just read whatever you want to. Take it easy. It's your life after all.
But then isn't it tougher for you because you are a Bookstagram creator and you keep seeing this good pictures, right? And some pictures are good just because the cover of the book is good, right? So isn't it tougher for you to say ki, I won't buy this book again, because this has happened with me. I have bought so many books just for the pictures. So how did you get rid of that feeling?
Okay, in that case, I always look at my bank balance and the cost of the book on Amazon, and then I wonder if it is something that I can afford right now. If not, let's let it go. There is no problem in that.
Right. I agree. So, and I want to take you back to the previous conversation where we were talking about fiction or non-fiction. Now, have you read any books by Salman Rushdie?
No.
And I was watching one of his interview, and he says in that interview, someone was asking him, why do you write such offensive books? And he says that if you want to get offended by a book, you need to do a lot of hard work, because it's 400-500 pages of book that you need to go through. तो तुम बहुत मेहनत कर रहे हो उसका offend लेने के लिए, offense लेने के लिए. And then you mentioned that you read non-fiction. So I want to know, obviously we all have our political thoughts, we have our historical thoughts, cultural thoughts, we have an opinion. Do you try to read books which do not match with your opinions?
Absolutely. I think it's very important that we read things which are challenging our own notions. I think being as a content creator and being in this space for almost more than 3 years now, I have seen a lot of things that happen on social media regarding the political views or regarding whatever thoughts they have related to different areas of interest. There are conflicting opinions, and then I see that people are just not able to accommodate, a different opinion, which is wrong, because as humans, we are always going to come up with a different school of thought. And as having said that, I think it's very important that you develop, and a liking for a differing opinion as well. You cannot live with your own idea of things, because your entire knowledge is limited. You don't know if what you know right now is an absolute truth. There would be somebody out there who knows probably a different probably has a different perception of things. So I think आपको अलग-अलग चीजों को पढ़ना, अलग-अलग लोगों चीजों को समझना बहुत जरूरी है. खुद को डेवलप करने के लिए ही आपको अलग-अलग चीजों को समझना बहुत जरूरी है, बिकॉज हर चीज का एक ही एस्पेक्ट नहीं होता है. देयर आर मल्टीपल डिमेंशंस ऑफ दैट सब्जेक्ट. तो I really like to read things which challenge my own, thoughts, my own opinions. And that is something that I absolutely like about myself. Honestly, bragging about it here, but I really
but
like
that's a good thing to brag about, because in India the problem is, and I have talked about this particular issue with a lot of people from the army as well on this podcast. So I was doing this one episode with someone from the army, and he had been on a very important post in the army. He had seen India from all the corners of India, and he told me one thing, that Indians do not read. So and also Kunal Shah tweeted about this कि India में reading self-help, it's पता नहीं वो क्या addiction है with reading self-help. People think it's a how should I put it? People think it's a your as if you're trying to show off कि तुमने कितनी self-help books पढ़ी है. And people do not read about the real matter. ठीक है, self-help is one aspect, but there are other things, other important books that you need to read. And as you mentioned, ki people do not read all the aspects, all the angles of one particular thing, and then they form their half-cooked opinions. So how do you think we can solve this? How can we solve this problem of not reading?
Not reading. This is a fundamental issue, and we have to deal it with on a personal level, and it's just very hard for us to change things on a society level. But I think it's very important for us to open ourselves to differing opinions and accept anything and everything that's coming our way. Just don't think that, okay, this is something that I believe is truth and I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to stand with it. No, just try to read a different line, different thought, an opinion which is challenging your own stand on things. And try to understand कि जो भी वो एक जो contrasting opinion है, वो contrasting opinion का root क्या है? वो opinion exist क्यों करता है? Try to put yourself in the shoes or try to think it from that angle. And this entire exercise is very exhausting. It takes patience, and that is one thing that I feel we lack: patience.
Correct.
To just sit, reflect on things, and then go about forming opinions. So it's very important that we go through this exercise, and slowly we will definitely develop a liking for reading different kind of material and then forming your informed opinion on things.
Right. So let me take this further. I'll ask you a two-part question. So the first part is, why I ask this is because in India, a lot of people, they just read self-help, as I mentioned, Kunal Shah ka wo tweet bhi. So first part is, how do you tell people कि भाई self-help छोड़ के भी और books है, please read that? How do you do that? Because okay, so I recently started my book club, and when I asked people कि what kind of book should I be mentioning in this book club, everyone, like 95% of people told me self-help, and I was like, India में क्या problem है, लोग दूसरी books क्यों नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं?
There is a kind of battle out there. लोगों को लगता है कि non-fiction is very helpful in life and fiction is not helpful. And this is a misconception on all the levels. Why? Because fiction is not a waste of time. We recently, I was reading about an article on this last week itself. Ki how we discard fiction as something as a waste of time, but it is very important for our own development. Reading fiction exposes us to different cultures, identities, thoughts. वो आपको इंसानों के बारे में बताता है, वो आपको इंसानों के इमोशंस के बारे में बताता है. मतलब we humans are very complex beings. I think it's so difficult for us to understand ourselves and other humans out there.
Right.
Because we just don't know what we are going to do and why are we doing what we are doing. तो ऐसी चीजों के बारे में अगर कोई ऑथर लिख रहा है तो उसने आई थिंक काफी रिसर्च करी होगी, उसने काफी ऑब्जर्व किया होगा, उसके एक्सपीरियंसेस से वो चीज उसने लिखी होगी. तो ऐसे में इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट कि आप उस चीज को पढ़ो, और जब आप उस चीज को पढ़ते हो तो आपका खुद का जो एक विजन होराइजन होता है वो एक्सपैंड होता है, आपकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग ब्रॉड हो जाती है. तो इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट कि आप फिक्शन पढ़ो, क्योंकि वो वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम नहीं है, वो आपको एक बेहतर इंसान बना सकता है. सेल्फ हेल्प इज इम्पोर्टेंट एट सर्टेन लेवल्स कि आपको लोगों के मिस्टेक्स से सीखने को मिल रहा है या लोगों के थॉट्स से सीखने को मिल रहा है. बट व्हेन इट कम्स टू फिक्शन, स्टोरीज आर अ ब्यूटीफुल वे टू engage our minds and also broaden our minds.
So there's this one book, I think so its name is Gods and Ends by Lindsay Pereira. So it's about it's a I don't know how to put it, like it's a very weirdly interesting book because it's a book full of tragedies. Like by the end of the book you will kind of feel a little bit depressed because it talks about a particular community in the society and how kids get sexually harassed, and it talks about all of that but in a fictional way. And when I read that book, automatically as you said, your horizon expands, your knowledge expands in that particular topic. So I just wanted to let people know, and that's why I started the book club. Now I have made that book club, and I have challenged people that you read these books, because self-help तुम्हें सब नहीं समझाएगा. And anyway, self-help books are basically what 300-400 pages, and उसमें से भी around 70-80% is useful. Other 20% is just वो book का cost बढ़ाने के लिए, pages बढ़ाने के लिए होता है.
Right.
So and people don't understand this. So and like as a Bookstagram creator, I'm sure people come to you for book recommendations all the time. So is it about self-help books most of the time?
No. People ask me about the thriller recommendations, about mystery recommendations. I think very few people have asked me about the non-fiction recommendations. Yeah, that is something that has not really
for some reason. For me, it's completely different. Whenever people ask me for recommendation, they ask me self-help, and I'm like, "Bhai, मैं नहीं पढ़ता self-help, मैं कैसे बताऊँ?" मतलब I have read, but not as many self-help that I can recommend. So it's a very weird space to be in, and I always see this debate about which self-help book is good, and I always tell people please read fiction, please check some fiction, because it will teach you a lot more than self-help books. So that's the whole conversation. And I technically I hate self-help books these days.
I think fiction को लोगों को लगता है कि it is all imaginary, but it is imaginary to an extent, but it is also inspired from reality.
Real events,
You'll see the people, their conditions, the places, their references to the cultures, which are coming from the real life.
Right.
And I don't think people are gods and they are creating a very different world out there in their minds.
Yeah.
They are definitely good with their imaginations, but there are things which are coming from the reality itself. So
correct.
It is not a bad idea to read fiction. It is a good exercise, and you should definitely go ahead with it.
Yeah. So okay, I'll ask you a very casual question. What was the last good fiction book that you read?
Last good fiction book that I read. Oh my gosh. Now this has got me thinking. Actually, I was reading Anxious People by Frederick Backman. I haven't read it. I mean, I haven't completed reading it. But yeah, I have been past a few pages till now, and I think that is the last good fiction book that I have read.
I haven't read
finished a non-fiction book, however. Okay, you haven't read it? A lot of people recommended read Anxious People. Then I was like, okay, let me try it.
What is it about?
Been going good. It's so far what I have understood, it is about a robbery that happened in an apartment with a few people, and now the cops are there, and they are trying to investigate the entire case. And yeah, these things are still going on. But I think in the end, the book is trying to teach us about the people with anxiety or something. Or maybe, how what appears is not really the truth. I think this is the premise of the book. Let me just get into it more. I cannot tell about it.
Yeah, totally fine. And what was the last good non-fiction that you read?
Just I think today morning I finished it. It's a very disturbing book. It's the name is To the Survivors, and it is written by someone who has volunteered at a center which is for the rape survivors, basically. For the sexual violence survivors. So it was a very disturbing book. It is a dark book. It is talking about the experiences of the people who have suffered the sexual violence, and how the society views them, how they view themselves, and how their entire idea of looking at the world changes after what happens with them.
Correct.
So yeah, that it is a condensation of. There are a lot of stories in that about different survivors. They are speaking about their experiences.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: when you read non-fiction, especially books like this, very hard-hitting topic, and the stories can be disturbing, and how do you deal with it? Because a lot of time when I read non-fiction, especially topics that can be disruptive for you, I find it difficult to read after a few pages. Like I was reading this one book by Gulzar. It is a compilation of his poems and one more writer, I cannot remember his name, his short stories. And these are about partition. And now there's this one story where
Hmm.
there's a scene which I cannot forget. It comes in my dream sometimes. It's like a nightmare now, because
Hmm.
it talks about ki when the partition happened, India Pakistan partition, people were coming
Hmm.
from train from Pakistan to India, and in that
Hmm.
train there were people who had to throw their newborn babies out of the train, and that is very disturbing. So
Very
how do you deal with such facts? Because obviously non-fiction is going to hit you very hard.
truth word, true word. So, usually I think I have become a little thick-skinned when it comes to
Hmm.
such books. So they don't really hit me that hard.
Yeah.
But in case I do feel a little disturbed, I just take a break. I let the things sink in. I take my
Yeah.
time to absorb what happened, because yes, you are right, because they can trigger you in ways you didn't imagine. Those
Hmm.
and sometimes you can probably even relate to whatever is written, not just because
Yeah.
it happened, and it might not have happened to you, but still you can be you can have empathy towards
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
happened. But there could be times when something similar has happened to you, and then it becomes very difficult to process it.
Right.
So I just take a break and let it I just let myself absorb everything, and then I come back to the book with a fresh mind and with a fresh eye, and then I continue
Hmm.
reading it. But I think over time I have become a very thick-skinned person in this regard.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and are there any more such non-fictions that might have, hit you very hard?
None that I remember right now.
Okay. So, because there are a lot of, like, there's this one book, it's called Punjab. I don't remember Ishtiyaq Ahmed, if I'm not wrong, the author's name. I might be wrong, but it's one of those books again, which talks about partition. It talks about very hard hitting topics and heartbreaking topics, in fact. So, yeah, I have that certain relationship with non-fictions where after a point, I just skip the book. I cannot read it anymore because the human emotions, which with these older authors, right? It's very brutal because they had seen that happening
True.
actually. So yeah, that's something
Right,
which
right,
happens
right.
with me.
I think I haven't read a single book on partition as of
Oh, you
now,
should, you
but I
should,
have
because
read. I think I should.
you were
Uh,
saying.
but I think I have read three fiction books based
Hmm.
on 1984 riots,
Right.
communal riots that happened in India,
Hmm.
and those were really hard hitting. Now that I remember,
Yeah.
two of them were in Hindi, I guess. They were
Hmm.
written by Satya Vyas, I think.
Hmm.
So those were really hard hitting because they just, for the first time, I realized why, the Sikh community is considered a minority. That was the
Hmm.
first time I realized.
Yeah.
And whatever that happened around that time, I didn't have an idea about the things. But when I
Right.
did get an idea, I was really uh, I don't know, disturbed. And that is exactly what I said. You become more empathetic and you become more open to the ideas of things. You just become aware. So reading fiction is
Hmm.
not a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you talked about Hindi books, right? And I have been seeing a lot of posts on your profile as well, which talk about books in Hindi. So, and is it like, how does Hindi books happen for you? Because for me, I haven't read any Hindi book till now, and I don't think so
Okay.
even if I can now, because the
Hmm.
language has been for so many years for me. It's basically like I can talk in Hindi, but I cannot read or
Hmm.
write Hindi. अब मैं भूल चुका हूँ स्कूल में क्या पढ़ा था. So how did Hindi books happen for you?
I have been reading Hindi books since my childhood, and
Yeah,
I just love Hindi as much as I love English. In fact,
right.
there are times when I really feel more. I mean, I feel better when I read Hindi. Although I
Yeah.
read Hindi books very less now, I used to read them more while was still in school.
Hmm.
But yeah, it has been there, and there is no special animos. I mean, I don't feel detached with Hindi literature. I really feel
Right.
very good and very, this a certain kind of warmth with Hindi literature.
Hmm. So what is it in Hindi literature that differentiates it from all the other, like basically English literature?
For me personally,
Hmm.
okay, so I think one reason is because Hindi is my mother tongue.
Okay.
Okay, so I just continue, and also I think I'm more more interested in classics Hindi rather than the contemporary Hindi. But when it
Okay.
comes to English, I prefer contemporary English than the
Yeah.
classics because classics don't really attract me a lot.
And
But with
the
Hindi,
language
there is a
is
very
much more
different.
tougher.
Really, I will agree with that. So with Hindi, there is just like you you have been used to this language, and
Hmm.
especially when the way the classics writer they write it, how they deal with this. There is probably a mention of shairi, nazm, the
Yeah. Yeah.
poetic language. I just really like it. I really like the experience of reading that language anytime and every time.
Correct. So let me ask you
Hmm.
this. As for
Hmm.
someone like me who has never read Hindi, who has forgotten reading Hindi basically, what would be a good book to start with?
Okay. What would be a good book? I think I'll tell you that you start reading with the contemporary writers
Hmm.
only, not the classics, because they have a very difficult Hindi that's
Hindi.
coming up,
Yeah.
and you have to find the dictionary for the meanings. So anything that's written by Satya Vyas or by
Hmm.
this Divya Prakash Dubey, these writers they have been writing good things. Manav Kaul and
Okay.
there was this Neelotpal Mrinal, I think that's
Hmm.
the name of the author. So these some of the contemporary Hindi writers, you can definitely start reading their work. You'll of course feel very nice. Also, I have noticed like they always write about very real things. Like
Yeah.
जैसे मैंने सत्यवासी की किताब पढ़ी है, आई थिंक बनारस के ऊपर है वो, कुछ
Hmm.
घाट जो वाराणसी जो बनारस का घाट है उसके ऊपर था।
Yeah.
तो जिस जिस प्रकार से वो उसके बारे में बताते हैं कि वो अस्सी घाट पे क्या होता है, कैसा होता है, और
Yeah.
लोग एक दूसरे से कैसे बात करते हैं, उनकी जो कॉन्वर्सेशन उसी उसी हिसाब से उसे लिखते हैं अपने नैरेटिव में।
Hmm.
बहुत अच्छा लगता है उसे पढ़ के कि हाउ थिंग्स आर हैपनिंग अराउंड, एंड जस्ट फील मोर कनेक्टेड, आई थिंक।
Yeah. So, like my mother used to, up to she doesn't read as much, but when she used to read Hindi novellas, she has told me that Hindi writers, they have a certain way to absorb you in their words because they write about something that might have happened yesterday. It's that relatable.
Yes.
So, do you also feel that is the case?
Probably, yes. I mean, that's exactly, they have a very good way of writing about the emotions. So you just
Hmm.
feel very connected. Okay, this is something that even I had felt like. So
Okay.
it's like this language and the way they write, this Hindi literature itself just feels like home. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
alien. And I think a lot of people in India, if not from the tier one cities, but those coming from the tier two cities or tier three
Yeah.
cities for that matter, these are the people I have usually observed. They read a lot of Hindi literature and they appreciate it. So it's not
Hmm.
like they are reading it and the literature is definitely good. It is definitely
Yeah.
lovely experience. So I think there is a lot of demand for Hindi literature, and it is able to make people relate to whatever is happening. And this is why the Hindi literature is still selling in India.
Yeah, and do you think कि मतलब since you have read so many Hindi books, so
Not so
does it,
many.
but still like more than me at least. So does it help you in connecting with people better? With people I think so, like people from tier two, tier three cities, because Hindi books talk
Hmm.
about their lives more than the urban lifestyle.
Yes. I think yes, because I think I come from Bhopal, and Bhopal itself is a tier two city. So yes, these books, they when they talk about the tier two or tier three cities or probably the
Hmm.
village areas, you get a better understanding of what are the real challenges that these people are facing. There could be
Yeah.
a young boy coming from a village area and he's trying to find his way out in a metro city, and their
Right.
struggles, उनके अंदर के जो कहते हैं कि मन के अंतर द्वंद और वो सब कुछ, उनकी
Hmm.
भावनाएं, उनके जो भी challenges हैं वो सब, तो उन्हें पढ़कर ऐसा लगता है कि okay, these are also real things, and these are the things that happening.
Yeah.
Like we are living
Yeah.
in some sort of dreamland. We just don't know what's happening
Absolutely.
out in the remotest corners of our own country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's not even talk about exploring the world out there. We are not even able to understand what is happening in our own country. And this is the real thing.
Absolutely.
A lot is happening in the remotest areas of this country, and we are still not aware about it. We're just talking about a lot of things. And one day I was in a conversation with my friend, and we were telling how everyone is trying to talk about the politics, not even politics.
Yeah.
I mean, things that are happening, suppose in
Yeah. Yeah.
America or in other parts of the country,
Current
which
current
again we should
topics.
definitely be aware about.
Yeah.
But they might not even have a clue about what is happening in the grassroots level, at the
Right.
grassroots level in India. They might not have even a single idea about it. That's kind of sad. Like, why are we not paying attention, or why are we not making efforts to know about our own country? So
Right.
these are all probably, he just referred it to all of these things as the first world problems.
Yeah. But then, is it
But there are real problems that are happening in your own country. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it because of the privilege that we have? Because I have noticed this in me, and I have been on the wrong end of this privilege matter. So I have been privileged since my childhood, because I went to a completely English medium school, which was co-ed, and that is a privilege for a lot of people that I realize now. Oh, school time pe to no one realizes this, but as you grow up, as you meet newer people. So when I went for my degree college, I saw that people came from various backgrounds, and I got to know that okay, there are certain problems जिनके बारे में मैंने कभी सोचा भी नहीं होगा, and those problems exist. So I think so that reading Hindi books, maybe they can explore. They can उस word, I am forgetting that word. There's one word जो मेरे दिमाग में नहीं आ रहा, but it I have lost track of my thought. So basically, my point was that it helps you get to know that topic better.
Yes, absolutely. You know, not that I'm not trying to demean the English literature here.
Yeah,
Even they also
not at
talk
all.
about the real.
Yeah.
Even they also talk about the grassroots problems. But I think Hindi has a different way of connecting, and it has its own audience. It has its own reader base.
Right.
So there is no comparison, basically.
So I also want to know from you, like, when you started your Bookstagram, you told me that you started it in 2017. 18. And this is 2022 now. So roughly like 3-4 years of hardcore bookstagramming. How did you grow it? Because it's a challenge for a lot of people to grow a bookstagram, because your picture, as we talked about dynamics, that pictures needs to be good, your write-ups needs to be good. So what are the key elements of growing a bookstagram? Because I'm sure that a lot of your audience might come here to watch this episode, and they would want to know कि आपने किस तरह से grow किया. So for them, can you give them certain tips that have worked for you?
Certain tips. I think I just got lucky sometimes, and that is how the growth happened. Because right now I have been stuck on a certain number for almost 3-4 months, and I don't know how to go about growing it anymore. Reels are working, and I'm trying to experiment with reels, although I'm not too comfortable with the entire concept of video content. But I'm still trying to find a way out of all of these things. But when it comes to bookstagramming, of course, the growth has to come when you are consistent with anything that you do. I mean, you don't get success overnight. There is nothing like an overnight success. There is nothing like a success that comes easy to you. Anything that comes to you comes with after a lot of time, after a lot of patience, after a lot of efforts. So you have to be consistent with doing things. There would be days you will not see a single result of what you are doing, and you might be just so disappointed, like, why are you even doing it? Why are you investing your time and energy into doing things? But on those days, a strong sense of, like, your why should be strong. Why are you doing it?
Right.
And when you have that why, that is, it is very strong, it is easier for you to get through your bad days. So consistency is important, and consistency will only come by if you have a strong why in the place.
Correct.
So I think consistency is very important. Experimenting with your content formats is important. You can always study how your particular industry is working out there, how your fellow bookstagrammers are working, how are they putting the content, how are they writing things, how are they taking the pictures, what are the books they are reading. Not just to pressurize yourself into being who they are, but you can
Correct.
always take some inspiration from it and then try to incorporate it, give it your personal touch, and then go about creating content and growing your own account. So experimenting is very important, consistency
Yeah.
is very important, engaging with the people is very important,
Right.
networking is very important. Like right now we are doing this podcast,
Yeah.
so in a way it is a networking opportunity for both of
Absolutely.
us. We are trying
Yeah.
to tap into each other's audience. And
Right.
I also realized that Instagram as a platform is a collaborative platform. It is not a
Yeah. Yeah.
competitive platform. If you
Yeah.
try to see it as from the lens of competition, you are going to fail. See it as a
Hmm.
competition that you're trying to connect with more people, you're trying to
Yeah.
collaborate, healthy competition is there, and
Yeah.
that's how you can make the most of this platform. That is
Correct.
exactly what I have read recently, and I'm trying to incorporate in how I am doing things from here
Yeah.
on. Because if it is a collaborative platform, we should see each other as fellow creators and support
Yeah.
each other. Try to come up with content pieces with which reflect our shared values, our shared experiences. That's how we can
Hmm.
go about. So networking is very important. As
Yeah.
a content creator, it can be your make or break thing probably. If you just stay in
Absolutely.
your own bubble, if you stay in your
Hmm.
own bubble, there is no way forward. But if
Yeah.
you get out of your own bubble, you try to meet people, you try to interact with people, you try to, you know, probably like say build relationships with people out there,
Hmm.
and genuinely help them with whatever and the way you can help them. That is the way you can grow on this platform or any other
Right.
in any other field that you go forward. I think that's the way you can grow.
Right. And you very rightly mentioned that Instagram is a collaborative platform because I have seen this, and obviously Instagram promotes people. If, like, for example, if you are a Bookstagram creator, I am a Bookstagram
Hmm.
creator, and we are
Hmm.
constantly networking with each other. As in, ki I am
Hmm.
commenting on your post, you are commenting on my post, so people get to
Hmm.
know कि अच्छा ठीक है ये दोनों एक दूसरे के पोस्ट पे कमेंट करे, कमेंट सेक्शन से you can explore each other. Then also
Hmm.
Instagram suggests you to more people when they follow you. So
Hmm.
for example, अगर मैं एक नया creator हूँ, I come and
Hmm.
follow ख्याति, right
Hmm.
after following you वो profiles देता है
Hmm.
नीचे फिर कि इन लोगों
Yeah.
को भी करो.
Right.
So those are the
Hmm.
people with whom your profile matches. So obviously it's a collaborative platform which people don't realize, sadly, and the competition grows very
Exactly.
toxic sometimes.
Yes.
And also,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hmm.
so I have been creating content for the past, I think so, 7 or 8 years maybe, and I have seen the growth of a lot of creators. And what happens is, and this is particularly for you, right? Because
Hmm.
you told just now that you are at a phase, at a number jahan se you don't know
Hmm.
ki how to get out of this, so you are experimenting
Right.
now. You are like, we
Hmm.
are doing the podcast which you were not
Hmm.
comfortable doing in 2020, but now you are experimenting. So
Yes.
do you know there's this very proven fact that when you
Hmm.
get stuck at a number and at that moment you start to experiment, after a
Hmm.
point you explode, then the graph goes exponentially up, so your followers are going to
Wow.
boom, and it is going to go exponentially
So
up.
good.
And there's a good I think so there's a graph as well जो मैंने कुछ दिन पहले share भी किया था, which talks about
Okay.
this same phenomena, which is कि it shows कि successful creators and unsuccessful creators उनके बीच में क्या difference है. There's just one difference, which is
I remember.
successful creators, they see the whole graph of experimentation, and unsuccessful
Yes.
creators, they never experiment. So I think
Right.
so in the next year or so you might be at 50K, who knows.
Just let's hope for the best for both of us.
Yeah, so that and I'm sure because your content is good, so hopefully it happens. But
Hopefully it happens. Yeah.
what is your goal as a content creator? Is it to um get fame, or is it to get money, or is it a mix of both?
In my case, it's a mix of both because
Hmm.
when I started it, it was a hobby, but now I really want to, I have converted it into my side hustle. So making
Yeah.
money is definitely a goal, and it is going well, so good so far. But of course,
Hmm.
the fame is also something that I kind of desire.
Yeah.
Not something like, everyone should know me, but it's like an external validation is
Hmm.
so important for our own existence. On days, it just
Yeah.
gives a lot of boost to our own morale and it
Yeah.
gives a lot of confidence. So I think a mix of both is
let
it's
me let
important
me
for
let me
me.
rephrase the question, because obviously for every content creator money and fame both are important, but let me
Hmm.
rephrase it like this: what is slightly more important for you? I know that it's a mix of both for you, but then is
Hmm.
fame little bit more important, or is it money little bit more important?
Um, Currently, I think money is more important, but in the
Hmm.
longer run, if I have to define my own goal with this page, fame
Yeah.
is definitely going to go, is going to
Hmm.
weigh more when it compares against
Yeah.
the money part.
Yeah. Do you think content creation creators are narcissistic? Because we always want
Hmm.
fame in a way. We always want people to talk about us, and we find out ways
Hmm.
in which we can make people talk about us. So, do you think we are
Hmm.
narcissistic?
I think yes, we are narcissistic. We really like this world where people are talking about us, they're
Yeah.
giving us certain value. I think we all are, not just content creators. All the humans,
Yeah.
at some
Somewhere. Yeah.
point in their lives, are narcissistic. They all
Yeah.
like the attention, the external validation, because that is
Yeah.
important for our own existence as
Yeah. We are
humans.
social animals.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think, yeah, as creators, we just tend to be more narcissistic on certain days.
But
And
that
this
is
is
beneficial for
exactly,
us, right? Because the more people talk about us, the more chances we get to make money.
absolutely, absolutely. There's nothing wrong about it. See, the
Hmm.
thing is, you can be narcissistic, but don't let it control your own
Yeah.
behavior and let not it control your actions. Because the
Hmm.
day that narcissism converts into some toxic ego, then that's a problem. Because
Right.
then your growth or your growth is affected in whatever
Yeah.
ways you want to grow in personal life or in professional life. So
Hmm.
you can be narcissistic, but just try to maintain a fine difference between being narcissistic and being egoistic about things.
Right.
Try to view things in a healthy manner, and
Yeah.
you're good to go.
Yeah. And like, since we are talking about Bookstagram content creation, are
Hmm.
there any of your favorite content creators on Bookstagram? It can be from they can be from
Absolutely.
India or outside India.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think Vidya is one of my favorite creators.
Hmm.
I really like reading the captions of Ekta from this book magnet, Kritika from Ask the Book Bug. Then there is Simran, there is Confessions of Two Reading Freaks. There are a lot of people that I absolutely love.
Hmm.
There is Bookworm Reads, Gunjan from Bookworm Reads, and okay, I might not be able to mention all of them
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now. But yeah, there are a lot of people I absolutely love reading, enjoying, interacting with them. It's always fun.
Hmm. Is this we have recorded over 1 hour now? So
Oh,
to wrap up this conversation,
hmm,
the last few questions. One of those is, and this is a question which I really wanted to ask you. Um,
hmm,
are there conversations with other fellow bookstagrammers about books
hmm,
where your opinions differ? Like, for example, you maybe and I'm saying this with no hatred for the
hmm,
author, you might love
hmm,
Chetan Bhagat, but some other creator
hmm,
won't like him or his writing. So
hmm,
what are
hmm,
your what are your conversations about these things like?
hmm, hmm, hmm. I don't remember any any intimate conversation I have had with someone when I had to
Hmm.
encounter conflicting opinion.
Yeah.
One time I did a buddy reading of a book with one of the bookstagrammers, and happily enough, we both were having the same thoughts on the book.
Okay.
So it was good. So I've never encountered a conflicting opinion, but yeah, I do come across such opinions in the form of captions or something, and I read them.
Hmm.
They also, again, as I said, it is so important to read those thoughts because it makes you think. Like, let's just
Yeah.
stop. You had a different opinion on thing. You had a different idea, and this person is coming from a different area of thoughts, and this
Correct.
might be a true thing. So it just makes you stop there and think, and that is something
Hmm.
which is very important. Just
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
over things, because again, as I said, it takes patience. It takes what I say, time to be in that
Yeah.
process of telling yourself like, okay, this is something which is against what you believe in, and you have to investigate this entire case before you form an informed opinion. So let's
Yeah.
get into this. So it's
Yeah.
a fun thing. So
And
yeah, I have never been. I have seen a lot. Yeah.
no, please continue. Please continue.
And I have also seen that there are certain times when people have very hateful comments about certain authors. And
Yeah.
I used to get very overwhelmed before reading those things, but these days I realize that okay, this is how the entire social media works, and Bookstagram is no different in this regard. So I don't usually get affected by it now.
Yeah.
Like I read it, I try to understand if it is something that I would like to accept and think over, I will definitely do it. But if it doesn't resonate with me at all, if it is just full of lot of hatred without any substance, I just go ahead. I don't want to just invest a lot of time or energy into those things.
Right. So and as you said that a lot of authors get a like weird kind of hatred.
Yes.
For sometimes it is not even their own mistake. Sometimes it's just the person who doesn't get their perspective. There's one such author.
Right.
It is Chetan Bhagat. What are your
Yes.
opinions on him and his writing? Because in India, he has been bashed so many times, and I am like कि बस कर दो अभी बेचारे को छोड़ दो उसने क्या मतलब इतना क्या कर दिया. Especially his books have attracted people towards reading, and still he gets a lot of hate. So what are your opinions about him?
Right. So Chetan Bhagat is not a bad author entirely, okay? And the people who read him are not stupid the way they are portrayed to be otherwise. I think he's a person who just got into writing after completing his entire education or something, and whatever he wrote was somewhere inspired from his own real experiences. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and because he wanted to write, so he did write. And if people were able to relate to whatever he wrote, it's good, right? Now, even though people are bashing him, even if people are just saying that they're hating on his work, there are a lot of people who have actually got into reading because of his books.
Absolutely.
And now
I am one of those people, in fact.
Right. So just because your reading taste has evolved, that doesn't mean that you'll go back to that author and hate on him or you'll bash them for whatever they have written. See, even if his writing was something that you found trashy, he just marketed it well. So he's a writer of people who are beginners, who like to read casual, who like to indulge in casual reading, and I think there is nothing wrong about it. If it is inspiring you to read more, no harm in that. If you don't want to read his work, you can definitely stop, DNF the book right then and there, and just go ahead. There is no point of hating on things you don't like. Okay, you always have the choice to give up on things. If you don't give up and then you come back to the things and then you tell bad things about it, I don't think that takes any of us anywhere.
Yeah. So Chetan Bhagat is one of those writers. Like I remember reading his book 3 Mistakes of My Life when I was 12 or 13, and at that time I was like, oh my god, what is this book? Maine kya pad liya? It was that good. And now when I look back at it, it's okay, but I don't hate on that author. And I think so in India, a lot of love story writers, they get like bin matlab ka hate. So there's this one more writer, his name is Ravinder Singh. He gets hate for the same reason, and pata nahi kyun, like people read their books, then they forget about it and they start hating them. So
trust me, I think right after I completed my 12th standard, I read Your Dreams Are Mine Now by Ravinder. I really liked that book. I just cried reading that book. And later on, I just came across people who were like, Ravinder Singh is such a trash writer. He's writing such trash stories and stuff like that. I was like, I just doubted myself. Like, did I just like something which was so bad? I don't know. But again, I have just really become immune to these things now. Like, people are going to hate whatever they want to hate. I have the choice that I'm a different individual, and whatever people are hating is not exactly what I'm going to hate. So to each their own, and let's live with that. There is no point of hating.
Do you know that Your Dreams Are Mine, the Ravinder Singh book, it is one of the most gifted book between teenage love stories, like teenage couples. And I
Okay.
bonded with my then girlfriend in 12th or
Okay.
11th, I think so, something like that, because of that book.
Uh,
And as you said that you cried, we also cried reading that book. So, and now when I
exactly.
look back at those people, they are the same people that are hating on Ravinder Singh. So I don't know if it's
Yeah.
their broken hearts or is it
Hmm.
Ravinder Singh जो सच में इतना बुरा हो गया suddenly.
Hmm.
So
No, I think these books, they have a very specific audience. You know, the
yeah, yeah,
teenagers, the late teenagers, they will of
absolutely.
course relate to these books. You know, they are very new with their emotions and their
Yeah,
thoughts, so they are going to find it very easy and very,
yeah,
these books are like welcoming for them. Okay, now of course we are grown adults. We have read a lot. We have explored
yeah,
the literature in very different manners. So we are not going to like it, but it's okay. Like you have to start from somewhere, and every
exactly.
book has its own reader base. Okay, it's not about that each book is going to satisfy the entire
Yeah.
reader community out there. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's that.
Yeah. Well, by the way, this just hit me, and I was going to interrupt you in between. इसके पहले वाले
Hmm.
हमारे conversation में,
Hmm.
but okay, I'll do it now. Which is
Hmm.
in 2020, you told me that you're not ready for video podcast, and
Hmm.
this is 2022. We are recording this
Hmm.
podcast now, and I have just realized that you're very easy to talk with. The conversation has flown for an hour without me thinking about कि अच्छा अब मुझे ये पूछना है अगला अब मुझे ये पूछना है. So the conversation has gone very smoothly, and somewhere I feel this is because of books, because you have read so
Yeah.
many books and your knowledge about the world has grown so much. You have some good opinions, formulated opinions. You can talk about it, and that is a
Right.
good note to let people know कि please start reading.
Exactly. Start reading it. And it's not like you have to read 50 or 60 books in a year.
Yeah,
You can just read 2 or 3 books in a year, and that's okay. You just
yeah.
have to read as per your availability, as per your own routine. If you
Hmm.
just see things from the lens of, as a leisure activity,
Yeah,
you're going to enjoy it. If you're going to pressurize yourself, then I don't know how it's going to help you anyway.
correct, correct. And so yeah, and also I'm very glad that we did this podcast, because this
Hmm.
conversation is one of the very different conversation that we are having on this channel. It's
Hmm.
always about serious topics with people from army, people who talk about history,
Oh,
religion, stuff like that. And this was
right.
in a way very casual but very serious at the same time. We talked about a lot of things today, and I still feel
Right.
that we can record for an hour more. It's that good because
Probably.
we
Yeah.
we can talk about books all day long. So yeah, but then we should definitely plan one more podcast, because I'm sure even your audience would want you to come out there and tell them about your life, and हम सबको fame चाहिए, as we talked about this earlier. But yeah,
Absolutely. But I think it was a really good exercise. I mean, really good experience for me also coming here, because before that I have done one podcast, but again, it was an audio podcast.
yeah.
It was not a video one. So it is a very, very new experience for me. So I'm always going to remember
Hmm.
it as my very first video podcast that I did.
Oh,
And
I'm so glad that we did this.
yeah, it is my first. So it's like a milestone event in the life, probably.
Hmm. Oh,
But yeah.
let me ask you this. Just
Hmm.
a thought. Are you
Hmm.
uh, are you going to start your own podcast? Because it's a good um, niche to pick into, because you know a lot about books. You can talk
Hmm.
about books on your own podcast. You can just make it a very
Hmm.
niche specific podcast जहाँ पे you're talking about books. You're talking with authors or someone else, like from community of the
Right.
Bookstagram.
Right. So I think I might just start a podcast in the near future. Not in the near future, but in the future for sure.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm just trying to get comfortable with the Instagram lives.
Yeah.
I think I did my last live session almost 10 months ago. It's been that long.
Oh, okay.
After that, I haven't just appeared there. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get back to that, get comfortable with things, and then definitely maybe one day I would love to be on this podcast thing. It's going to be a new experience again.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I would love to hear your thoughts on your podcast. I would love to see you talk with authors as well, because I genuinely feel that you have some really amazing opinions about the world issues. I mean, we have talked about just for an hour, but I got the
Hmm.
trailer, so I'm really excited to
Okay.
see your podcast.
Okay, that's enough of an motivation today for me. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
You
Okay,
have been a
so
wonderful host.
thank you so much. Thank you. And before we log out of this podcast,
Hmm.
this is one question that I ask to every guest. Are there any
Hmm.
specific book recommendations for the audience, like your favorite books
Ah,
or books
ah.
that you are reading right now? Any recommendation?
So, Tuesdays with Maury is one book that I always
Beautiful book.
recommend, and a lot of people have read it and they have
Yeah,
come back to me and told me this that book is really nice. So, if you
yeah,
haven't read that book, do read Tuesdays with Maury. The
yeah,
second book that I really love was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
yeah.
Uh, and an author I would like to, a couple of authors I would like to recommend are Ruskin Bond and Sodha Murthy, and also
Hmm.
Jhumpa Lahiri, because I really like her work. I have,
Yeah,
although I've just read one book by her, that is The Clothing of Books, but the way she writes, it is so beautiful, it
yeah.
is so immersive that if you are someone who likes to read something of a very good literary quality, just read
Hmm.
Jhumpa Lahiri for sure.
Right, right. So you mentioned Tuesdays with Maury. So I think so you will love this book, and this is a recommendation from me for you. By the
Great.
same author. This book is
Okay.
The Five People You Meet in Heaven. By the same author,
Yeah.
Mitch Album, his
Yeah,
name.
Mitch album.
So
Yeah.
again, a very short book like Tuesdays with Maury, but a really beautiful book.
Hmm.
And there's one
Okay.
more book. This is a very fat book. This is called Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. So if you
Okay.
are, and I won't recommend it reading to everyone, just to you, because you have read books and you know how literature works, how the language changes. So this
Yeah.
book, it's basically uh, from a very historical perspective. Like it starts in the
Hmm.
18th century, if I'm not wrong, and it ends at post-apocalyptic world. And there are several
Okay.
stories in between, and at every story, as the years
Hmm.
progress, the language changes according to the year. So in one
Wow.
book, you get the pura literature. It's one of the most beautiful work I have recently read, and it's about rebirth and all the Eastern philosophy. So these two books that you might love.
Sounds amazing. I'll definitely try David Mitchell's book. I'll definitely
Yeah,
try it.
perfect. So yeah, with that being said, thank you, Khyati, for doing this podcast. बहुत ही मजा आया. We should
Hmm.
plan one more very soon. We should definitely plan one more, because I really need to talk with you more about books.
Absolutely. It was such a lovely experience to be on this show and then talk to you. And you have
Thank
been
you.
such a hard, such a, what should I say, welcoming host here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.